actually live on Facebook. This is the Children's Education Alliance of Missouri, or SEAM. You can call us SEAM. And this is our hashtag SEAM Cares, helping families face the challenges of the coronavirus epidemic, especially when it comes to education. So we hope everyone is practicing all the recommendations regarding the virus, like physical distancing from people and hand washing, and that we're all trying to flatten the curve and keep this whole show safe for everyone. We can get all through this. And you're going to see me messing around here as we go live. And I'm on my phone watching us there because I'm going to ask for your questions. If you're tuned in, stay tuned in here. We're going to be taking your questions in the comments section and looking for your help. And as we have this conversation, which tonight is about mental health in COVID. You know, several weeks ago, when the quarantine was still just a new idea, I saw something about fear that really stuck with me. It was CBS. They featured a story on Sunday morning called Coronavirus and the Contagion of Fear. And it included Dr. Rajita Sinha from the Yale Stress Center. And she said that fear can spiral out of control when these three conditions are present. And she was talking about something being unpredictable, something being uncontrollable, and something being sustained or chronic. And that's very much the situation we're in right now with coronavirus. And it's why we wanted to focus on mental health this week. In fact, it's a little bit of a trifecta because coronavirus is unpredictable because we simply don't know enough about it and don't understand everything about how it works, and that causes stress and anxiety, and it's currently uncontrollable without a vaccine, and we just really don't know when it's going to end. And now we're all holed up in our homes, and school has been canceled. I guess business is back open in some places. It's unclear where this is all going, but we're here to help. We've got some great people to talk us through some of this. And, you know, I think the one thing that makes coronavirus especially unique, the experience, is that everyone is having, you know, some version of the same experience. So basically, you know, there are no unaffected people. So I've invited two St. Louis area mental health professionals, counselors, therapists to join us for our talk tonight. They both have a lot of experience helping children, teens, and families navigate a crisis. So, or just navigate life. I'm saying crisis because I'm in coronavirus mode, but you know, it's you know, big and small. So we have with us tonight Brian Evans, who you may remember Brian from our very first SEAM Cares Facebook Live event. And Brian is a child mental health practitioner and therapist. And Brian works primarily with children through young adults. So welcome back, Brian. It's good to see you.
Likewise.
And our second expert is Anita Wilson, who is a counselor with the Awareness Institute. Hi, Anita, which provides therapy for individuals and families. And Anita usually works with teens through adults. Do I have that right, Anita?
Yes.
Right on. Well, welcome. I'm so glad that the two of you were able to join us again tonight. We had that first video, Brian, got a lot of views, you know, by my standards, like a couple of thousand. So that's awesome.
Good.
And we had people watching live, and we had a lot of feedback on it because it is just such an important topic. And I'm happy that we're able to sort of talk about it, normalize it, and you know, help people think through some of this stuff. And I want to remind the audience again, I'm Peter Franzen. This is hashtag SEAM Cares, our Facebook Live event. We have Anita Wilson with us and Brian Evans. They're both mental health professionals. So if you have questions for them or our topic, you know, you can put that in the comments section, and we're watching and we'll do our best. I'm trying to find it on my phone right now so I can see your comments, but I have help, never fear.
Nice.
There's definitely a lot we can say about the subject of mental health and the coronavirus, and tonight we're going to do our best to stay focused and provide people with some helpful insights and resources, and we're going to have those in the comment section too. I'm so long-winded, you guys. All right. So, but that's all right. I have two kindred spirits with me. So we, can- we,
Most
can,
definitely.
we can all
Definitely.
have a lot to say. Anita, you've been a counselor for a pretty long time. And like the rest of us,
Yes.
you, I assume, have never seen anything quite like the coronavirus epidemic. So, Anita, can you tell us a few of the most common, manifestations, mental health issues that you're seeing as a result of all this?
Yes. And thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate this opportunity to at least offer some resources to local families. Some of the things that I'm seeing, I'm assuming are common across the board for everybody. There's a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of some depression and feeling of being lost and not sure what's going to happen next. I fortunately haven't seen a lot of relationship issues. I'm very grateful for that. And I know that those are also going on, whether it be parents and child, or children observing parents arguing, fight. I know that there are a lot of relationships that are struggling with the stress of the external coronavirus, plus the, stressors of being stuck inside with somebody. So I know that's up, but I haven't been experiencing it in my practice. Mostly just the anxiety,
Right.
people fearing the unknown.
Right. And I think there's a lot of that, certainly, in everyone's daily life. I didn't have a goatee when this all started. Also, I didn't bake bread when this all started, and trying to,
Right.
you know, cope with everything that's happening around us. Brian, you're working within a large institution, in your day job, as well as being a therapist in private practice. What would you add to what Anita laid out about what are you seeing?
Well, while I think it runs the gamut in just as institutions. I mean, the family is an institution, so the family itself is stressed by the experience of COVID-19. So you see layers of anxiety, layers of stress. So parents are experiencing it in one way, and then that layers on top of how the children interpret and metabolize, if you will,
Yeah.
that experience. So parents are facing it. It doesn't matter whether the parent is a essential worker who's going out every day and working in the public, or if the parent is someone who's working from home. The stress is very palpable. So parents are experiencing a number of different layers of stress. So you're stressed because I have to go out and I have to be in public and I have to be masked and I have to be gloved and I have to be careful and I have to wash my hands. And then when I come home, I have to be careful of how I come into my home. I have to be careful of how my children embrace. I have to be careful of how I interact. If I'm a caregiver of an older adult, I have to be careful of that. So there are layers of stress that the parent then brings home. And then that also is a layer on the children. So the children sometimes don't actually experience it in a very and I'm speaking basically of school-age children, kindergarten through fifth grade, sixth grade, may not actually show it where they're fearful and they can say, this is because of COVID-19, I'm upset. But it may come out in difficulty concentrating. It may come out in behavioral changes such as moodiness, aggression, temper tantrums, clinginess. All of a sudden, they're very clingy to you. Fear. Sometimes it might be coming out in terms of difficulty sleeping, not sleeping at all, sleeping too much, withdrawal. Those are some of the behavioral things that you might see. And I've noticed that in some ways, the normalcy of the day helps to mediate some of that. So if there is an expectation of getting up and
Definitely.
every day at a certain time, that helps to mediate some of that anxiety. If there are interactions, there are new routines because you're not in school, but the expectation is this is a school day. And since it's May, we're not out of school yet. So we get up every day. You might get up a little bit later, but you have breakfast. You have family routines that you do and you incorporate. And I think that's the other part. I know from my colleagues who work in schools, they're doing dual jobs. So they're teachers or counselors or whatever they do for the district, for their district. And then they're also parents. So As someone put it, it says, "Excuse me, I'll answer your question in just one moment, but right now I have to take off my administrator hat, and now I have to go and be the lunchroom attendant and make sure everyone has had breakfast. And then as soon as I finish that, then I'll be hallway monitor and make sure that they go to their respective tables so that they can start on their work, and then I can answer your question." And we just laughed about it because they're doing dual roles. And at home, you're a parent and you're not expected to be the educator. You know, even if that is what you do from your 9 to 5 every day, or 8 to 3. This is, you know, your mom and dad when you come home. And so they take the pressure off, because parents are feeling the stress of having to educate their children at home and what that looks like. And it doesn't matter what kind of work you're doing, it's all, you know, impacted. So these are some of the things that you can see. The other part of it is might be that their parents see is the physical symptoms, like your appetite changes, or their complaints of stomach aches or headaches, or they start to wet the bed, they weren't having any problems. These are signs that even in normal situations, and when I say normal, compare this to you moved into a new home. That would be, and you start to see some of these signs. Compare it to mom and dad even had an upset or anger, you know, a heated moment of a communication that kind of got a little bit loud. And, you know, those are kind of some normal things that you might experience, or, you know, a loved one passing or something that causes stress. These are kind of normal things that we have, and you might see these things. This, again, with compared to COVID-19 and how this has impacted our world. Also, we're inundated every day with so much information. It's on the news from the morning till the night. You can't turn on any social media without seeing COVID-19 at the corner or the top or anything, or updates. If you get anything from any of the news medias, it's always there. And so it's the conversation of everyone. You see it when you go into the marketplace, and when you go out to take care of business, you see people distancing themselves and being careful and mindful. And if you wear a mask, I was out getting my daily exercise, you know, the other day, and I noticed, because I had my mask on, people cross the street, you know, when I was coming towards them. And there's this sense of, and as even as a therapist, everybody is feeling the tension of what this has. So we feel it as a family, we feel it as a community, and we feel it in our children.
But, yeah, Brian, and Anita, I was going to ask you that, what is that? I feel that too, a lot of information overload. I mean, I feel a lot of things, you know, I'm blessed to be able to work from home, which is awesome. So I know, you know, I'm having that experience where coronavirus to me is, I feel fortunate to say, you know, coronavirus to me is something of an inconvenience. That doesn't mean it's not stressful to me. It's not the same as me losing my job and dealing with the stress of not being able to provide and being quarantined. But what about that information overload? Anita, what does that do to the psyche, to the mind, you know, when we're exposed to that between the television and social media?
Yes, actually overwhelmed is something that Brian mentioned, and that is very much going on with every member of the families I'm working with. Parents are overwhelmed if they are indeed privileged to work from home, and they're not getting any of that commute time to switch hats, you know, so they're being instantly in job role and then moving straight to parent role, and sometimes got to do both at the same time. So overwhelmed. The idea of all the information that comes in, and it's really hard for people who, you know, haven't studied viruses their entire life to actually understand what's true, what should I think, how do I make this make sense. And so that's overwhelming. And what that does is create high levels of stress. As you mentioned in the introduction, if it's out of my control, if I don't know when it's going to end, and it's making everything sustained, it leads to stress, and stress in the body translates to anxiety. It triggers our survival mechanisms. And so literally, when we are that overwhelmed, that inundated with information, and have that much going on, and our brains are trying to process it, we'll go into survival mode and our bodies will read it as we are in danger.
Right.
And when we are in danger, we are not thinking from problem solving. We're not thinking long term. We're not necessarily prioritizing the way we would in normal circumstances. So our brains tend to go into flight mode.
Mhm.
And so that's when you'll see a lot of procrastination. You will see people being very distracted. They can't focus, or they're trying to gather as much information as they can just because they're trying to figure out, okay, how do I flee from this? Then you'll have another piece of fight mode. And the fight mode often ends up in some of those explosions where people are suddenly just so overwhelmed that it may overflow into yelling at the kids. It may overflow into slamming doors. It may overflow into, but everything just suddenly seems to erupt from a person all of a sudden because their nervous system is telling them fight, lash out.
Right.
And then the final thing that comes up is freeze.
Right.
And freeze can look a lot like depression because
Mhm.
people just kind of stop.
Yeah.
It's literally their brains are trying to put together what is the answer to how to survive this. And since there's no answer, it just kind of keeps spinning and spinning, like the internet does sometimes.
Mhm.
And so people can't finish a thought. People forget what they were saying. People just kind of stop. And you can see, and all of that is the biological reaction to stress. And here's another piece that adds on to it. It's overwhelming the new roles. It's overwhelming the sense of change. And it's also overwhelming the information coming in. And it's overwhelming to imagine, what does this look like later down the road? So
Right.
all those levels of overwhelming translate into the body saying, I think we're dying. I just don't know. And so the body starts to react. And so simple things that can help your body relax also can help you get out of the stress mode. But
Right.
long-term stress can turn into trauma.
Right. Let me,
What this looks like down the line is possibly a lot of traumatized generations.
right. We talked about that. That's what I was wondering. And Brian, tell me if you agree with this. Is the COVID generation, is that going to be people who are now like what, 11 to 21? Is that who's really getting clobbered by this psychologically?
Well, I'll say this generation, we will never go back to what we consider to be normal for what normal was.
Mm.
And that is something that we've got to wrap our brains around. And so what does that look like? Again, as Anita said, when the unknown. Um, and I think rather than using the word what we're being clobbered with is focusing on what do we know? What has our institutions as well as our families taught us about what we know about ourselves? While we, as the last 200-300 years, while we've had other plagues, we
Yes.
cannot say that we've ever had a pandemic that every continent has experienced massive loss, massive sickness, massive death, deaths. We've not known this. But what we do know is that we have evolved and we have become better. We've become wiser. We've learned things. We've developed cures for other illnesses. We've also been able to protect ourselves. And while we know that in the midst of this, that's what we know about the future. We will get through this. And I think that's the message to help us deal with about mental wellness. We can talk about mental health, which is a variety of things.
Right.
But oftentimes the focus isn't on mental wellness and what do we do in terms of keeping ourselves healthy. As Anita said, when we find ourselves spiraling, when we find ourselves not coping well, that's not something to be ashamed of. That's not something to be even fearful of. It is what it is, and that's not just something to say, but if you can own what you are and say, I'm dealing with the stress of this, and so if I don't complete my sentence or if I talk too much, I guess I'm experiencing a little stress. But if I talk too much, or if I'm a little quiet, I'm a little reserved, then I can actually own that I'm experiencing this. that helps me to help my mind kind of put it all together and put it in perspective. And if I can do that, and if I can model that for my children, then they can model and they can regulate. If they can see their parents say, well, this is okay for me to say I'm having a moment, or I'm having moments, and I didn't sleep well last night. Okay, well, what do you think that was about? Well, I noticed before I went to bed, I was watching the news with you, and you started to say this, and I was, oh, well, yeah, that's because I was stressed too. Well, how does it make you feel? Well, I had some other dreams about it. Okay, so maybe we don't watch the news at 10 o'clock. Maybe we'll watch something else tonight. What would you like to watch? That gives them permission to problem solve, gives them permission to feel and know that feeling is normal. Right. I think if nothing else out of this, we're learning how to communicate. We could, if you remember, there was a time where we talked about how bad it was, the internet, how bad it was to have cell phones, how bad it was. And now
yes.
we needed something to help us to put all this stuff down. Well, hello. So now we're here. And if nothing else, we're learning how to communicate, but we've got to now learn the rules of communication, which is not only talking, but listening, active listening, and hearing one another, hearing our children, paying attention to our bodies, paying attention. One thing about stress is when the body is overwhelmed, when the mind is overwhelmed, it makes it even more susceptible to other illnesses because it's stressed.
Yes.
So if we learn how to handle stress, if we we're always going to be surrounded by stress. If COVID disappeared tomorrow, we would have stress about what to do tomorrow.
Right.
We would have it.
I want to jump in and remind people that they're free to ask questions if they have any about our topic, which is, mental and family mental health during COVID. And I'm interested in getting the audience's take on this. If anyone can relate to what we're talking about. Did they have any of the challenges that we just heard about? Does that ring true? I was on social media. I mean, you're right about the internet. It's what's allowing us to communicate, to be here tonight, to continue to connect with parents. At the same time, I was on Facebook, and without describing the whole status, the post that the person had up, it boiled down to what seemed like some anger about, those folks who were making I don't want to say making the case, folks who were talking about graduation and how these, this generation of seniors are grieving the loss of of their graduation and all that. And then somebody, in an attempt, I guess, to compare grief, or I really am curious what you guys think about this, their point was, well, all these people can shut up until, they tried to have a funeral during COVID, because that's what this is really all about. And where does that, what initiates that kind of grief comparison?
I'm going to jump up.
Please.
Well, I'm gonna jump in and say, to some extent, ageism. One of the things that I'm really working with families of teenagers is to kind of help them balance out that human interaction piece and that technological thing that they're having. Because they're, are 21 and, younger, we talk about them always being on the internet, always being on social media. And so families forget that, yes, they're good at this, and this is one of the ways that they interact with their friends. But this is not the only way they interact with their friends. And it's important for, as they develop psychologically, to be able to have more friend time. So when I hear somebody say, well, it's silly that kids are worried about missing graduation, wait till you do a funeral, kind of ignores the fact that grief is grief. And so if you're lost out on a major milestone of your life, it's grief. If it's, you've lost out on a major person in your life, it's grief. So that misunderstanding of how important some of these ceremonies and traditions are, I think kind of just comes with not understanding how humans grow and develop into adulthood.
Right. I'm with you on that. I think that's, acknowledging that we're all going through a different experience, and that, it's impacting us differently. But, you know, the comparisons of how it's impacting people, I don't know, you know, how
Can I add to
helpful
that?
that is for any conversation.
Peter, if I can add to that, it really is everything that Anita says. If I could add one thing, it's also perspective. That that I see the world from the lens that I see it through. So when I hear the conversation about someone who is experiencing the loss of a loved one and planning a funeral where you may or may not be able to attend, you know, and I've worked with families who are experiencing that. That's what they're experiencing at that time. And I have to validate every experience that they have in that loss. Very much the same way someone, and it could be the student or it could be the parent who has looked forward to for 18 years, their child walking across the stage, which has been our norm, and they're grieving the loss. And while they're trying to comfort the child who's saying, as long as they give me a diploma, I'm good, you know, are you okay? And they're like, well, yeah, I'm fine. I just want to make sure, but not recognizing you're grieving the loss of as a parent of this milestone that is centuries old.
Right.
These are kinds of things. It's the perspective,
Yes.
and we have to validate that in one another, that we're not all going to experience it, a loss, the same way.
Let's see if we can help Christy, who, thank you, Christy, for watching, and Vince
Okay.
and Laura. Christy is talking about her 7th grade daughter, who is a straight A student, distance learning independently, so no concerns there for mom. But the daughter, the 7th grade daughter, is upset, angry, and very bitter about quarantine. She talks to her friends on social media and in video games, but misses the face-to-face, in-person interaction. We talk and process. So good mom.
Yeah.
All right. So she's talked, but yet her anger lingers and evolves into tiredness and sadness. And that's kind of where she's at. How can I help with that?
One of the things to remember is that depression and anger are often very closely related. Most people think about depression as sadness, low energy, but depression can also show up as anger. And so while it sounds like Christy's daughter is verbalizing, I'm mad about these things, I want to go do these things, she's still feeling them very strongly. I think that it's wonderful that Christy is processing and encouraging that conversation, you know, helping with that emotionality of it. But it seems like she also needs to help her daughter figure out, what do I do with this anger? And I would recommend that if possible, helping her express it physically. Maybe they could work out while they're talking about it. I also have some students that, because they have a history of being in physical fights and stuff, that's how they process their anger, but they don't want to be in trouble and they don't want to hurt anybody anymore. So we talk about hitting a pillow on the floor. That way they don't hurt their hand, they don't hurt anybody else, but they get that solid thunk of connecting. And so it once again helps their physicality process and move that emotion
Christy
out
is
of their
talking.
system.
She's saying,
I
yes,
also,
she definitely does not hide her feelings, but is desperate for positive change.
gotcha.
Right.
I think that some journaling might be really helpful, and maybe some arts and crafts. Sometimes, especially when we're able to recognize what the emotion is and we know that we're feeling it, but talking about it doesn't help. Sometimes we need to engage the other part of the brain, the one that's more symbolic, less verbal, and the emotion will be able to come out that direction as well.
You know, let me ask you guys, I mean, you know, when this all started, I distinctly remember, you know, some real hardcore people on social media about, you know, making the most out of this quarantine and all their plans and what they were going to get done. And I don't know, none of that has materialized for me. I'm working from home and I don't really have any extra free time. So I have not transformed my home or yard into anything. But let me, you know, our hobbies, you know, are those passe, or are we still doing hobbies? Is that a good idea? Does that how do we help people?
I think to set a goal,
Oh,
it's easy to
say
become
that.
very ambitious. It's very easy to become very ambitious and set something like, oh, um, I'm going to do something with my whole backyard. I'm going to transform it. Maybe to chunk that down into something that's actually doable that
Okay.
you will attend to, and give yourself permission that if you don't get to all of it, it's okay,
Yeah.
because you've never lived through a pandemic before. You've never had to be home home and work from home before. Many people find this to be the absolute worst situation that they could have ever been in, is to work from home. If you are a people person, if you're a therapist, you're doing telehealth, if you're, this is challenging. But to flip that into what can I do, into problem solving. What can I do? What can I work on today? And set that agenda, and then start to work at it, and give yourself permission to experience maybe not accomplishing all of it, but getting something done. You have to start there, where you can. And I know a lot of people, after you've cooked so much, you're like, okay, I've gained weight. Now I got to go work out, because that's what everybody says online. Now I got to go work out. So I'm gonna go out here and work out. And then something else happens. And then now you got to go do this. And in between that, you got to keep a job. You've got to, take care of the kids, and you got to mask and glove up. So what is it that you can do that is reasonable? Sometimes we set these lofty goals that are unobtainable, and then we get angry and upset because we didn't achieve it, because we see somebody online who did 50 million things in a half hour.
Right.
Well,
We're telling the truth. We don't know. We don't know if they were really telling the truth. Brian, I just wanted to add and let you and Anita know, you both provided some great resources, and it looks like Nick has added those to the comment section. The behavioral health response,
Good.
and the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, and Kids Under 21, and it goes on. And
Yeah.
Anita, I know you sent us some. There's links in there. Anxiety. So there's great links in the comments section. And Christy, I'm so glad that you were able to tune in and that we could answer an actual viewer question for you. Brian, Anita, any parting thoughts or advice on this as we wrap up? Anita, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yes, I agree with Brian on the trying to break big projects down into little chunks. But I'm very much encouraging everybody to be compassionate and kind to themselves.
Yes.
Yeah. All of us had very big ideas of what it would mean to be at home and get stuff done. But yeah, we've never done this before. And I don't have more time in my day just because I'm not driving to someplace. And I imagined that magically I would have more hours. Right. So reminding myself that, I have to continue to revise my expectations as I learn more about what does it mean. Being gentle with yourself and recognizing that it's hard to have your life all in one place. During the life before, when we would have work in this space and our friends in this space and our family in this space, it was a little bit less work to transition between them, and we got recharged from moving through those different spaces. But now all of that is coming into the place where we live. So our work is happening in our house. Our, people are being yelled at in their living room by their bosses. Folks are feeling, upset and arguing with friends and family in their bedrooms. So that sense of security and retreat and relaxation that you used to have when you walked in your door, we no longer have that. So it is more stress. It is a lot of out of our control. And so be kind and gentle with yourself as we all learn how to take care of ourselves in this new situation. And I love what you said, Brian, reminding ourselves of our personal, our family, our country, the human society as a whole. We're all very resilient. We have solved problems. We have learned so much. We have developed in such a short time this amazing technology. Mm-hmm. And so whatever unfolds next, we will handle that too. So I love that message of hope.
That is a good message. I can be more pessimistic sometimes. So yes, we are going to survive this. I don't know what's coming next, but I'll be happy when we I don't know, when things chill out a little bit. You know,
Yeah.
all this new space in my head that's being used to like remember to, you know, grab a wipe and remember to wipe a surface and remember to wash my hands and remember not to walk too close to somebody, remember to pull up my mask and, you know,
Yeah.
all that stuff is just like more clutter. It feels like right now.
Mhm.
I don't know, Brian, what are your thoughts? What are your parting thoughts?
I do believe that it can be that way. I grew up from in a family that always whenever my brother and I would say the words "I don't know," the response was, "Don't tell me I don't know."
Go
Know
find out.
something. Don't tell me. You go right. Go find out. Um, but it also taught me one thing. A lot of times we focus on what we don't know, and that is overwhelming. But
Yeah.
go back to the things that we do know.
Yes.
When you are in your home and that is your sanctuary, it's still your sanctuary, whether it's your work home. So what do you do? If it's, I was speaking with someone who told me at 4:30, when they shut their computer down, they have no place to really go to because it's you know, the work is still there. As Anita said, it's still there.
Yeah.
But what you can do is do something different. You can shut your computer down. And what do you know about yourself that you need to separate yourself and give yourself some space? If you need 15 minutes to go outside to come back in the house so that you can feel refreshed, do that. You know that.
Hmm.
What are the things you know? If you know that you get upset when, you know, it's something in the house that's not quite right, then you give yourself an opportunity to handle those things. What do you know?
Right.
The resilience that we have, the resilience that we have and that we have as a people, as a community, is, and the fact that we're connected. We don't all have to experience it the same way. And I'll bring this to my closing. I feel like I'm in church. My closing is this: is that what you do know is the things that have actually brought you to the day to be the person that you are, and has, you know, you have everything you need to survive. And if you concentrate on what you know about yourself, what you know about your community, what you know about your faith, what you know has brought you through, those things are the same things that are going to help you make it through this event, no matter how catastrophic it is or how much it, you know, this interrupts your life. It's the things that you know that are going to help.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, you guys, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us and share your expertise and your knowledge, because it definitely is, as everyone watching either live or later can attest to. It's, you know, it's been stressful and weird, and you know, it is a lot. And I appreciated what you said, Anita. That's right. I think, you know, people, don't be so hard on yourselves. Take care of yourselves. Remember what you're good at. Remember who you are. And yeah, we will get through this. It's just weird.
Yeah.
It is.
And acknowledging that piece and being able to be honest and discuss it with people around you makes it a little less weird and makes it more of, I'm not alone. We are in this weird situation together.
Mhm.
And that helps more than you can imagine.
Exactly. Well, I want to thank you both, Anita Wilson and Brian Evans. And if you're watching, I would tell you who's going to be on next week, but I don't know because it's coronavirus and I'm not Superman and I'm still working on the panel. So I'll
Thank you
let you
so
know.
much.
Thank you guys both for being here. And thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Thank you.